June 4th, 1942, 10:20 a.m. 400 miles northwest of Midway Atoll, the Pacific Ocean stretches flat and endless under a sky scrubbed clean by morning winds. Lieutenant Commander Clarence Wade McCluskey circles his Douglas Dauntless dive bomber at 14,000 feet, fuel gauge needles trembling toward empty. Below him, invisible beneath broken cloud cover, the most powerful carrier strike force ever assembled by Imperial Japan prepares to launch a second wave against Midway. McCluskey has been searching for 90 minutes. His fuel will force him to ditch in the ocean within 30 minutes. If he fails to find the Japanese carriers now, the American fleet dies today, and the road to Hawaii lies open. The cockpit reeks of aviation fuel and hot metal. McCluskey's hands are steady on the stick, but his mind races through calculations he doesn't want to make. Behind him, 32 dive bombers follow in loose formation, their pilots watching their fuel gauges with the same sick fascination. The radio crackles with static. No contact reports, no vectors, nothing. The Japanese fleet has vanished into 8 million square miles of empty ocean. McCluskey banks left, following his instinct rather than orders, chasing a hunch based on a destroyer's wake he spotted 10 minutes ago. The sun climbs higher. Metal surfaces inside the canopy become too hot to touch. His wingman signals, tapping his fuel gauge. McCluskey ignores him. 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes of searching. Then the clouds part. 10:22 a.m. Machinist Tom Eversole, manning a lookout post on the carrier Kaga, sees them first. Tiny black dots materialized against the sun, diving at 70 degrees, screaming down through thin air. He opens his mouth to shout a warning, but the sound of his own voice disappears beneath the howl of aircraft engines pushed past their limits. The alarm bells begin their futile clanging. On the flight deck below, 18 Nakajima torpedo bombers sit fueled and armed, their ordnance intended for the American carriers that Japanese scouts still haven't located. Aviation fuel hoses snake across the deck. Bombs and torpedoes wait in neat rows. The carriers have been caught in the most vulnerable moment possible, rearming their strike force, switching from land attack ordnance to anti-ship weapons. McCluskey pushes the stick forward. The altimeter unwinds. 13,000, 11,000, 9,000. The world narrows to a single point, the red circle painted on Kaga's flight deck, growing larger with each heartbeat. His dive brakes deploy with a metallic scream. Wind tears at the aircraft, trying to rip it apart. His vision tunnels. His lips pull back from his teeth. At 2,000 feet, he releases. The 1,000-pound bomb drops away, and McCluskey hauls back on the stick with everything he has. The Dauntless groans, protesting, but responds. 4.5 Gs press him into his seat as the aircraft claws back toward the sky. On Kaga's bridge, Captain Jisaku Okada watches the bomb arc down. Time dilates. He sees every detail. The bomb tumbles slightly, correcting its path. It strikes the flight deck just aft of the midship elevator at 10:24 a.m. The explosion tears through 3 decks. Burning aviation fuel sprays across the hangar deck where more aircraft wait, fully fueled, fully armed. The secondary explosions begin immediately. Lieutenant Akira Watanabe, standing near the island structure, feels the deck lurch beneath his feet. Heat washes over him in a physical wave. He turns and sees fire boiling up from the elevator shaft, orange and black, impossibly bright. The torpedo bombers on the flight deck begin cooking off. Ordnance explodes in random sequence, each blast triggering others. Men run in all directions. Some run toward the flames with firefighting equipment. Some run away. Some simply stand, paralyzed by the speed of catastrophe. 200 yards away, aboard the carrier Akagi, Commander Mitsuo Fuchida lies in the sickbay, recovering from an emergency appendectomy. The first explosion makes the bulkheads ring like a temple bell. He knows that sound. He led the attack on Pearl Harbor 6 months ago. He knows exactly what's happening on the flight deck above him. He tries to stand, but the ship heaves violently to port. Another bomb has struck. This one penetrates the flight deck near the forward elevator. The explosion rips through the hangar deck where aircraft are being rearmed. Aviation fuel ignites. Stored torpedoes cook off in their racks. The blast wave travels forward and aft simultaneously, a freight train of superheated gas and shrapnel moving at the speed of sound through confined spaces. Fire control parties dissolve in the flames before they can connect their hoses. On the destroyer Nowaki, 3,000 yards distant, Ensign Takeshi Maeda watches through binoculars as all 3 carriers burning simultaneously. Kaga, Akagi, Soryu. The 4th carrier, Hiryu, still steams untouched to the north. But Maeda can see dive bombers circling above it too. The American aircraft look like hawks, patient and methodical. At 10:26 a.m., Hiryu's luck expires. 4 bombs strike in rapid succession. One penetrates the forward elevator. Another hits amidships. The flight deck splits open. Flame and smoke punch skyward in distinct columns, black at the base, brown higher up, finally dispersing into gray haze that begins to obscure everything. Maeda lowers his binoculars. His hands are shaking. In 5 minutes, 4 carriers. The heart of the Kido Butai, the mobile strike force that has dominated the Pacific for 6 months, is burning to the waterline. Inside Akagi's engine room, Chief Petty Officer Matsuda fights to maintain steam pressure as fires rage through the decks above him. Heat conducts through the metal around him. Paint blisters on the bulkheads. The intercom has gone dead. He has no orders, no information, only the sound of explosions transmitted through the ship's frame. The deck plates beneath his feet grow hot enough to burn through boot soles. Then the order comes via messenger. Abandon engineering spaces. Natsuta secures what he can and leads his men up through smoke-filled passageways toward the main deck. They emerge into hell. The flight deck is a lake of burning aviation fuel. Bodies lie scattered. Some move. Most don't. Men jump overboard, choosing the ocean over the flames. Destroyers edge closer, taking survivors aboard, but they cannot approach too near. The heat is too intense. Akagi lists to port. Admiral Nagumo has already transferred his flag to a cruiser. By 10:28 a.m., it's over. The dive bombers pull away, reforming into loose formations for the flight back to Enterprise and Yorktown. They leave behind 4 funeral pyres. Kaga burns so fiercely that her hull glows red in places. Internal explosions continue at irregular intervals as magazines cook off. Akagi lists steadily to port, her flight deck awash in flame, her interior a maze of fire and toxic smoke. Soryu has taken 3 direct hits and already shows signs of breaking apart. Hiryu, struck last, burns with the particular intensity of a ship loaded with aviation fuel and ordnance. The carriers that attacked Pearl Harbor, that terrorized Darwin, that dominated the Coral Sea, are dying. The 5 minutes between 10:22 and 10:27 a.m. have rewritten the strategic balance of the Pacific War. Silence settles over the scene, broken only by the crackle of flames and the occasional explosion. The ocean around the burning carriers becomes dotted with heads, hundreds of men in the water, swimming away from the heat. Destroyers cruise between them, throwing lines, pulling survivors aboard. The smell of burning oil and rubber carries for miles downwind. On the cruiser Nagara, Admiral Nagumo sits motionless in a chair, staring at nothing. His staff waits for orders that don't come. The man who commanded the attack on Pearl Harbor has just watched his striking power evaporate in the time it takes to boil an egg. By evening, all 4 carriers will slip beneath the waves. 3,500 Japanese sailors will die in the flames or the water. McCluskey brings his dive bomber back to Enterprise running on fumes, his fuel gauge reading 0. He lands with less than 10 gallons remaining in his tanks. In his after-action report, he will write, quote 0, "The Battle of Midway continues for 2 more days, but the outcome has already been decided. Japan's carrier force, the instrument of its Pacific dominance, has been shattered. The Americans lose 1 carrier, Yorktown. The Japanese lose 4, plus their most experienced pilots and mechanics. The tide has turned." Lieutenant Commander McCluskey receives the Navy Cross. He survives the war, lives until 1976, and never speaks publicly about the 5 minutes that changed history. Subscribe to witness more moments when the fate of nations balanced on a knife's edge.